Recently, I read a piece of news that said planetary scientists have found evidence of bodies of water below the surface of Mars. You heard that right. They found water on Mars. Kind of thing just blows my mind. Got me to thinking, I'm getting older. And sometimes I look around and I don't even recognize the world I'm living in anymore. Things are changing every day, and well, not always for the better. Maybe the 50th time we'll do it, I'll get the lines right. It's time to talk a moment about how things were a bit more simple back in my day. Back in my day, scientists weren't discovering water on Mars, star boggles. Back in my day, the only thing scientists were finding on Mars was Matt Damon. And they were working like hell to bring him home. And let me tell you, when he got home, we loved dem apples. Back in my day, West Coast wasn't living in fear of being engulfed by wildfires. No siree. Back then, the only thing people on the West Coast were afraid of was earthquakes, tsunamis, droughts, smog, traffic, and O.J. Simpson. Back in my day, Macy's didn't cancel the Thanksgiving Day parade turkey legs. Back in my day, parade goers would brave the elements in hopes that if the wind blows just right, you might see Olaf the Snowman's carrot nose dive right into Snoopy's ass. Oh, Rusty, I know you think there's nothing wrong with that. Back in my day, we didn't have to worry if there'd be a peaceful transition between presidents. Back in my day, if you lost, you lost. Unless something weird happened down in Florida with Chads. Then if you lost, you actually won. But technically, we all lost. Back in my day, people weren't endangering their fellow man by refusing to wear a mask on a plane. Cod buckles. Back in my day, if you were wearing a mask on a plane, it was because you had too many tiny bottles of vodka, and then you pulled down the oxygen mask so you could pretend to be Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. And when the flight attendant came over to ask you to stop, you'd say, "You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it." And then she would say, "Is that supposed to be from a movie or something?" And you'd say, "Yeah, one of Nolan's Batmans, the worst of the three, in my opinion." And then when the plane finally landed, you get a stern talking to from the Miami-Dade police. Back in my day, we weren't doing this show without an audience. No, back then, the deafening silence after my jokes was completely incidental. My favorite. Back in my day, people like Jeffrey Toobin weren't accidentally exposing themselves on Zoom calls. Fiddlesticks! Back in my day, if you wanted to pleasure yourself in a meeting, you set your phone on vibrate, you slid it under your nethers, and then you'd tell your assistant to call you at 11:15 on the dot. Although we should be thanking Jeffrey. With all the bad news out there, it was nice to hear a story that tugged on your heartstrings. I'm a jerk. Oh, he's the jerk. I see what you did there, Rusty, and I like it. Back in my day, being a Proud Boy didn't mean you were a white nationalist. Insel feathers just meant you were the first of your friend group to grow pubes. Those boys sure were proud, and rightfully so. I was jealous as hell. Oh well, I'll get there someday. Back in my day, there was no National Daughters Day, and there still isn't. You got fooled by an Instagram hashtag. And now Mark Zuckerberg owns photos of you and your daughter, and he can do with them what he wants. Hope it was worth the likes. Back in my day, people weren't leaving New York because of the pandemic. No, sir. Back in my day, people left because their rent went up 3,000% or because a colony of rats built a small kingdom underneath the sink. And you knew in your heart that you should hire an exterminator to get rid of those rats, but all the rats took a vote and decided that it was you who would be leaving. Back in my day, the NFL wasn't postponing games due to COVID outbreaks. Turf burgers. Back then, the only thing that could stop an NFL game was your wife asking, "Can we watch something else?" And you'd roll your eyes and she'd say, "You've been watching football for 8 hours." And you'd hem and you'd haw and she'd say, "I'm taking the kids to my mother's." And just like that, you'd turn it off. But it was too late. She was already gone. For good this time. There was nothing you could do to bring her back. And at that moment, you knew. You knew more than ever. You were ready for some football. Cardinals versus the Jets. Back in my day, we weren't all working from home. No, sir. If you were home on a Monday, that time was spent with The Price is Right, not dumbass Zoom. Man, I used to love The Price is Right. Well, I'm sure you do think Bob Barker is a son of a bitch, Rusty. Hell, if he ended every show with "Have you Seth spayed and neutered," I'd be mad at him too. Back in my day, they weren't telling me to avoid trick-or-treating because of some stupid virus. No, sir. Back in my day, they were telling me not to go trick-or-treating because I was a grown-ass 46-year-old man. But hey, sometimes you feel like a nut. Oh, Rusty, did nut make you think about Barker? Yeah. Here you go, buddy. Chocolate's good for dogs. Well, just eat the almond. Back in my day, we weren't avoiding shaking hands because of COVID. We were avoiding shaking hands because you might get hit with a too slow and then look like a damn fool in front of everyone on the school bus. Now, I'm not saying that happened to me specifically, but if that ever happened, you can forgive a boy if he started to cry, peed his pants a little, and then tried to escape out the emergency exit in the back. And guys, if you think teens will laugh at you for a too slow, just imagine what they'll do if they saw a crybaby with pants covered in piss falling out the back of a moving bus. Ho-ho! Those Proud Boys sure could be cruel. Well, I'm sorry, but sometimes this grumpy Gramps has got it great. This has been Back in My Day.